Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're taking a look at the 10 best horror games of 2023. It doesn't have to be the scariest, so long as it brings a bone-chilling vibe. Dead Space. The Dead Space remake had everything going against it. A relatively new studio under the thumb of EA remaking a product from a team that no longer exists with a team that's worked on vastly different IPs like The Sims and Star Wars Battlefront. That whole concept was practically set up for failure, and yet developer Motive Studio blew it all out of the water. Using new advancements in lighting, sound design, controls, and optimization, this quickly became the definitive iteration of 2008's Dead Space. The Ishimura has never been this terrifying, between the creaking metal, stalking necromorphs, and how you're forced to sacrifice comfort and safety for progression and secrets. And so, the wait begins for Dead Space 2 Remake. Amnesia The Bunker. For a while, Amnesia seemed like it was kind of meandering with 2020's rebirth. Felt like the IP had had its day in the sun already and would never get it back. However, The Bunker was the shot in the arm it needed, and it is terrifying. Set in World War I, you play as a French soldier trapped in the bowels of a bunker that houses a vicious beast. With limited resources, even more limited windows of safety, you will need to find a way out of the bunker or die trying. The Bunker is by far the most stressful horror game we've played this year, as time is always running against you. This is not for the faint of heart, but it is so hard to not recommend it to the average player. Don't shrug this one off. Dredge. Your task in Dredge is a simple one. Venture out and catch some fish. Nothing more, nothing less, until you start meeting the locals. It isn't long after your arrival that you find out the region's plagued with deadly sea creatures that only emerge at night. These monsters can do something as simple as infect your valuable catches, or something significant like damaging your boat. There is a lot of strategy involved between upgrading your boat, hunting specific fish to fulfill special orders, and having to risk your own safety for something as measly as a little squid or flounder. The terror can be kept at bay most of the time, but when you're forced to face it head on, it goes hard. Little Goody Two Shoes.
With it!
In between the Final Fantasy hype, Square Enix has published a couple of super strong horror games. Little Goody Two Shoes was the second one, and we weren't expecting it to be this captivating. On the surface, you have an adventure game inspired by classic Walt Disney animated films, as well as 90s anime. However, there are darker aspects in play. We don't want to spoil too much, but you really don't want to dismiss this game just because it was made in RPG Maker. Little Goody Two Shoes is wonderfully written, and the decisions you make will affect what kind of an ending you wind up with. Will you survive the witching hour, or will you become another hunt for the religiously zealous villagers?
Keep it together, Elise.
My Friendly Neighborhood. Admittedly, My Friendly Neighborhood is more funny than scary. That doesn't mean there aren't some jump scares here and there, though. When a defunct studio behind a children's show is mysteriously back on the air, one handyman must go in and disable the antenna for good.
And all the rest. Hey!
Clever in its concept and mechanics, My Friendly Neighborhood is more than just Sesame Street meets Resident Evil. The themes of war and friendship are heavily woven into the fabric of its narrative, along with its creepypasta scares. Plus, if any of the Szymanski brothers have their name behind it, you know it's worth checking out. Really, if you like horror games, you better be paying attention to these guys. ParaNorman Site: The 7 Mysteries of Honjo. ParaNorman Site was the other horror title Square Enix published this year. The game focuses on a young man as he becomes invested in a series of tall tales known as the 7 Mysteries of Honjo. Yes, it is a visual novel with some light point-and-click adventure elements, but don't let that dissuade you. The way ParaNorman Site does horror is unsettling and will haunt you long after you set the controller down. The game will mess with your head in unexpected ways, and if you want to experience this for yourself, you can pick it up on Nintendo Switch and PC for a modest price. It's worth it. Trust us on this. Haunted House. Many may not notice it, but Atari is making a quiet and humble comeback, handing their IPs to smaller studios to create new and fun games. Haunted House is their latest endeavor, developed by Orbit Studio. When her uncle and friends vanish, young Lynn must set foot in a mansion that is constantly changing its layout. Buff up your lamp, stamina, and health as you sneak past monsters, retrieve artifacts like old Atari cartridges, and rescue allies to strengthen yourself for more runs. Pong Quest was an oddly pleasant start for this new era of Atari back in 2020, but for us to be talking about Haunted House in 2023, color us impressed with the art style, music, and mechanics. Master Detective Archives Rain Code.
I get it. The place where I was sleeping was in fact...
The second we heard the lead writer of the Danganronpa games was making something new, we were already on board. Master Detective Archives evokes that series in its music and art style, and yet it manages to stand on its own with its gameplay and story.
Is there a fire?
Fire? So, it's burning?
As the surviving member of a small group of master detectives, you will utilize a variety of powers to solve mysteries surrounding Kanai Ward, a facility owned by the questionable Amaterasu Corporation. The game encourages you to investigate anything and everything, and quickly teaches you that not everyone is to be trusted. It borrows the best parts of Danganronpa while morphing them into something of its own, and after the first hour, you'll be hooked. Plus, Shinigami, your death god friend, is perhaps the funniest character in video games this year. She's great.
So you can finally see cute little me.
Alan Wake 2.
My version of the Mind Palace technique. To sift through clues and work the case. Building the Mind Place again for each case. Using each field office as a model in my head.
Speaking of games involving some detective work, Alan Wake 2 sees you controlling both our favorite spooked author and an FBI agent investigating a series of gruesome murders conducted by a cult. Connect clues in the Mind Place for new leads, new questions, and more as you try to uncover the identities of these killers.
You are not allowed in the lake until he says otherwise.
Robert Nightingale came from the lake. before his murder.
Sure, it isn't like the original Alan Wake, where it was somewhat like a horror shooter game, but the mystery you'll unravel here is both haunting and brilliant, especially as you find more pages of Alan's manuscript. Honestly, the less said here, the better. Please go experience this for yourself.
You must dig it out.
Something was put inside him, in his chest. I must find out what.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure to go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Resident Evil 4.
Oh, what's the car? Wouldn't want to get a parking ticket.
So much for helping me.
Resident Evil 4 was perhaps one of our most anticipated games this year, despite some of the skepticism that was floating around up until launch. This remake of the 2005 classic managed to focus on what worked back then, while reeling back on more nonsensical moments and refining the gunplay. No longer do you have to stand still to shoot. Now you can move and blast away at the same time. Some gimmicks do still rely on QuickTime events, but they are way more responsive than ever before. Basically, it plays like the new Resident Evil games and still has the same level of action and camp as some of the other titles. Simply put, this is one of many must-play titles in 2023 in addition to the other 9 you just saw here. What was your favorite horror game this year? Did it make our list? Let us know down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Watch Mojo for more great videos every day.